It's one of the reasons why I celebrate my birthday twice a year, 6 months after my actual birthday. I'm leadership material because I make it happen, something that floats your boat.
If something that I'm really interested in, I will be happy to find ways to make it fun. But something that I just have to do, so how
Mhm.
do I get the motivation to do it?
If you look at the long-term benefits, it seems to just keep your motivation higher. It helps you make experiences more meaningful.
Sometimes we as people, we have goals, ambitions, and so much to do, and then we start a project with so much excitement, especially with ADHD. The start and the beginning is so exciting. You start with so much energy and emotions, and then down the line you lose it. You lose the energy and the curiosity and the interest in it. And so many times you know the solution to your problem, the thing that is causing you issues, but you just don't do it. So what's your reaction on this?
That's a really good pot of soup. That question right there has so many answers. I'll give many viewpoints to that, and each time I'll go down a little further, and I'll try to give you the simplest answer. So a lot of times there are certain things that we're naturally good at. Things like that. There are some people out there who are creative, really good at starting ideas, and actually that's what they're good at. They're good at starting ideas. And I call them the firecrackers because they have a very short fuse, and then after they light and they give a nice dazzling show, but then after that they're kind of done. And then you have other people who aren't so creative and are good at taking orders, and those are like the worker bees. And then you got the other people who are the people who like to finish things. They're the finishers. So in an ideal world, you would want to pair their strengths together. But we don't always have that luxury. So let's just talk about that individual who is good at starting things. A good way to see it and a good way to understand it is you understand what their natural talent is, what they like, what they actually flow at. So you can use a hammer for many reasons, but you generally like to hammer things in like a nail. And in that case, the person is really good at starting things. When they start, they get energy. The energy activates their mind, it activates their emotion. And then within themselves, they have a certain part where it will naturally kind of wane and fade until it's not there anymore. So the thing is, no matter how you look at it, with awareness, it's allowed, meaning that in that situation, they either didn't know what do I do to keep it going. They either weren't aware of it or it wasn't in their visual capacity to be able to understand that. So when they understand, oh, I have excitement towards something and it started out great, the next step is, well, what do I have to do to sustain it? What can I do? And so to be able to sustain it is that you have to be able to use different things about yourself to keep it going. You have to understand that, hey, there was an environment towards this, there was a certain thought that I could use towards this. There were certain emotions that helped me get through this. There were certain actions that helped me get through this. There were certain reactions that helped me get through this. There were certain expectations that helped me get through this. And even certain motivators that helped me get through this. So if I had to give you an example, let us just say a guy named Joe wants to start a business and he's really excited about the idea, he's excited about the future, he's excited about the prospects, he knows he likes to start ideas. Well, the thing that Joe has to kind of address is, what is his strengths? And you use this through a SWOT analysis of strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And you can identify his strengths and then, put those in one pillar. Then also the weaknesses. What am I kind of weak at that I probably am going to need to enhance? And we'll stop with that part right there. Then he has to identify his beliefs. If he believes, oh, the next part could be long and boring, or something I just don't like, or I'm not a good middleman, he will have to address that. He can rephrase it, he can reframe it, he can review it, he can take the situation and focus on the end result. He can focus on what he will do after he completes that. He can focus on the gains that he got from this activity that built upon the others. So whenever he puts those in his view and he understands that those are there and he can keep them there, that will affect his beliefs, that will affect his thoughts, his perceptions, his expectations, his emotions, his actions, reactions. And if he can reward himself with something that he likes, it's like another fuel source. And then the other thing is that when he's moving along and doing these things, it's always good to set rewards. I mean, I cannot speak highly enough of rewards. And then what I would say is as he continues and gets closer toward the end is he starts to reflect. what did I do? How is this important? How could I use this in the future? Why is this benefiting me? And I suspect that the mind really likes the benefits. I always loved gamification too. Daniel Pink in his book Drive talks about when things are like boring or something like that, you can add like a little competition. If you, let's say you have to wrap boxes and it's really boring to you, it's like, well, how many boxes can I wrap in like 10 or 15 minutes for normally boring tasks? But if a task is already naturally exciting, well, then just do it because it's exciting. Then the thing is, you have to make sure that you remember it, because the mind, in my opinion, just loves to forget things. And maybe it's even naturally made to forget things. It prunes itself. It does a lot of its own form of cleansing. To try to remember everything is really hard, but to remember this process, to see it, to personalize it, to make it yours, to make it about you. And so sometimes you can even get your identity into it. It's like, I'm leadership material because I make it happen, something that floats your boat, but makes it like an experience. So each one of these helps motivate, and it helps decrease procrastination. How easy can you make it for yourself? How fun can you make it for yourself? Because fun itself is an energy. It's probably the best energy. I've worked with Olympic athletes before. They found ways to make it fun. How do I swim from one end of the pool to the next? And, I think one had told me they had like a little fish doll that they go and then they flip it around and they go swim back. And, it was just awesome. I was like, wow, versus someone else like, okay, I got to go hustle and hustle and hustle. And then they're just tired. That's one energy, in my opinion, that I've seen over and over lasts a lot longer than all the others.
How do we know, like, what do we really want to do? While you're saying all of this, one thing that came to my mind, if something that I'm really interested in, I will be happy to find ways to make it fun. But something that I just have to do to take care of responsibilities, let's say, those are the things that I have to do. So how do I get the motivation to do it? Or give me a plan to balance those two.
That's a good question. So something I discovered recently, maybe in the last few days, was something that, although it seems unrelated, is it has to do with care. So care in itself is a range, and I noticed that a lot of things in life and in improvement are ranges. But on one end, care is you don't care at all. You really don't care. It's just something you almost have to fight and force yourself to. And that's okay. That's one end. The other end is where you care too much. And this leads to perfectionism and all kinds of analysis paralysis and things that will just set you back. And a lot of people don't know that you can care too much about something and it'll prevent you from ever getting started. So what I would say is to answer your question about getting something done that you just don't like is identify how much emotion that you have with it. So for instance, let's just say, shoveling manure. If you don't like the smell of shoveling manure, and you got to move it from one truck to the next, we could say that's a dirty job, and a lot of people don't like the smell and they don't like the feel of it, and they're going to have a really hard time making it fun. Sometimes it's not going to be fun. But if you set proper expectations, and then also you can make it into a game, you're like, well, how many times can I fling it from one truck and make it into the air, and then, be the best manure flinger in the whole entire world? Laugh at it, put some environmental factors, put some good music that I like, or just whatever you can to use your imagination. And if you're having a really hard time, you could use all the things that we just mentioned. But the thing again is that you have to hold yourself accountable. And one of my things I like doing is that when I'm successful on something, I try to write down all the little steps on it, and then I put on a little index card. And then after that, I'll look at that and review it later. Just in this conversation alone, I just came with 4 or 5 great tools to get through it.
And what's your opinion on rewarding the things that you do? Rewarding when you do something right, or check off your to-do list, or reach a milestone or something. What's your opinion on rewarding?
So in rewarding, a lot of times what I try to do is I almost always try to make Friday my reward day as something that I would go and use to acknowledge, to deeply acknowledge, not something casual and not something to forget either. It's one of the reasons why I celebrate my birthday twice a year. 6 months after my actual birthday, 6 months later, I set a day aside from what I call my second birthday, and I sit and I try to acknowledge, all the things that I've done from those 6 months from my actual birthday, and just let it sink in. And the rewards are sometimes kind of important to take into consideration. I'll give you an example. If someone's trying to lose weight, it's kind of obvious it's a really bad idea to go eat a gallon of ice cream. I wouldn't recommend it. Just really bad. So you want to do something that's beneficial to yourself, something you can afford, something that kind of would really help you sink it in, something that's meaningful to you, something that you might even look forward to. I would almost prefer that you directly do something that gives to you, and something that means knowing yourself, learning yourself, rewarding yourself, having a list of what you like and what you like to do. And sometimes it could be just something as simple as like sitting in the sun if it feels really good to you, and breathing, and it doesn't have to be complex, looking at flowers could be, sketching something could be it, breathing essential oils, if that's your thing, watching a funny cat video on YouTube could be, you could hit the spot, you name it. Rewarding yourself, if you look at the long-term benefits, it seems to just keep your motivation higher, which builds your drive. It
Mm-hmm.
helps with your memory. It helps you make experiences more meaningful.
Yeah, great conversation. It had some positive lights, and somehow it's making me feel really happy. And I'm going to definitely, if I had to take one action step, I will take the reward structure and try to reward myself often. And I will ask anybody who is seeing this to just reward yourself and love yourself better.